Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending where you are in the world. I'm Clarice Rocha, I'm the D.Sc Regional Director here for the Americas. I'm very happy to be here. I'm sorry. I'm very happy to be here organizing today's webinar, talking about the Brazilian oil and gas sector. So today we talk about the state of play and overview of project activity. This webinar we have joining us IBP. So this is a partnership between IBP and EIC, and we're aiming to provide market updates to give you valuable insight and of course to shed a light on the available business opportunities leading up to OTC Brazil later on this year. Before we start, I'll go over a few housekeeping items just to let you know how to better participate in today's events. So bear with me. First of all, you've entered as an attendee, so you're listening mode. If you're having any problems, you can also join using your telephone. So on the audio pen, just use dial-in information, and you'll find the dial-in information from the country you're joining from. Okay, and that's another option to join. Your participation today, we really want you to participate actively, so you feel free to send questions to us, and we will be able to answer your questions throughout the webinar. We'll have a Q&A session in the end, so if you already have the questions, this is the tab where you can type them, and I'll be reading them to our speakers in the end. Besides that, we really incentivize networking. So this is not an in-person event, but you can see who has registered and allowed their data to be shared, because we're always very keen to comply with GDPR rules. So feel free to go under the Handouts tab and download the delegate list. And on that list, you will see everyone who registered to attend today's webinar and has allowed their data to be shared. Okay. Finally, today at the end of this webinar, we'll have speedy networking at the Glimpse platform, so we can actually talk to each other. So that's a way to make this webinar as interactive as possible. We'll give instructions towards the end. And finally, I always like to make an introduction, since we always have new names here. I do see familiar names registered, but I also saw people that we are not familiar yet with. So what's the EIC about? The EIC is the Energy Industries Council. We're celebrating this year our 80th anniversary. Very happy for that. And we are here to help our members to identify and win business globally. On a 360 view of our local markets. I'm based here in Rio, taking care directly of South America, but we also have an office in Houston, in the UK, Dubai, and KL. We provide market intelligence, networking opportunities. We organize the EIC Pavilion as well as the UK Pavilion in major trade shows. In all those offices, we have launchpad facilities where you can base your company there. And particularly here in Brazil, we support companies in getting registered with Petrobras. A highlight to our database is that on EIC data stream, we cover over 13,000 projects. This is an example of a project, but Pietro will later on present to you an extract of all you can see from EIC data stream. Another database now covering the whole world, but including Brazil, is Asset Map. EIC Asset Map covers all the assets that have become operational. So if you are supplying into the O&M, this covers assets from LNG to hydrocarbon plants. To hydro plants, to solar farms, but also oil and gas facilities. So all the plants that become operational after the investments, they become an asset here in EIC Asset Map. And today, I'm not going too much detail, because we're going to bring you a teaser of the new tool we're going to launch. We have a supply map that has mapped 3,500 suppliers from the UK. This is already available on the tool, but we are launching it for Brazil, and I'm going to invite in a few minutes Kevin to bring you an extract of it. I always like to highlight what is coming next over the next 3 months. And this week, if you are in Rio, we have a breakfast with Care, Energy, and Engie about hydrogen. Sorry, I have an issue. Oh, here it is. We also have in May breakfast with Braskem on the downstream side, and those are 2 in-person opportunities. If Guyana is a market of interest, next week we'll be bringing a trade mission to Guyana. If there are other regions of South America of your interest, we'll be hosting a webinar about the Argentina market in June. And what else? And we are celebrating our 80th anniversary with a cocktail in Rio and a presentation by Petrobras and Shell on the 25th of May. I'll be delighted if you join us to celebrate this. On the training and fundamentals courses that we organize, we have a hydrogen fundamentals on the 16th of June. We also had this week offshore wind and FPSO, and they will repeat throughout the year. So feel free to reach out to us for new dates. I would like to highlight an initiative led by the UK government. It's called UK Brazil Partners in Energy. They are leading a market visit for companies working in renewables, energy transition, and decarbonizing mining on the week of 19th and 23rd of June. And if you're coming on that week and would like our support to organize your oil and gas program, please feel free to reach out, and through E.A.C. Consult, which is the E.A.C. bespoke consultancy service, we can organize a visiting program for your company as well. So feel free to let us know what are your needs. And finally, we're organizing our flagship event, E.A.C. Connect, on the week of 6th July. So this is our next agenda. Of course, feel free to reach out to us and learn how you can sponsor and also speak in those initiatives. Now, I'm going to invite our next speaker for today. Natalia Bavolska is part of our she's our senior project and events manager, and she's going to present to you a little bit more about our participation in OTC Brazil. Natalia, please feel free to talk to us about how the companies can participate.
Thank you very much for introduction, Clarice. So as Clarice said, my name is Natalia. I wanted to bring to your attention this opportunity to expand your reach in the region, if that's of interest. So EIC is hosting an EIC and UK pavilions at OTC Brazil in October this year. And OTC Brazil markets itself as one of the main offshore events in the world. And we are expecting around 50,000 visitors to the show this year. Next slide, please. I wanted to mention that we have secured a great location at the show. We're just opposite to Petrobras, very close to BP, Baker Hughes, and Total. So I think that could be definitely of interest if you wanted to exhibit. Next slide, please. There are many benefits of exhibiting with the EIC. I will not bore you with the details. I'm happy to follow up with a call to discuss a bit more about it. But one of the main benefits is definitely an enhanced promotion. We'll prepare a brochure which will be distributed in advance to EIC-wide network, and also we'll be sharing the brochure during the show days. We also offer you the ease of logistics. We offer turnkey stands, and also pods are available at the show, and you'll be well taken after by our project manager, who will be there on site to support you, and basically will help you out with all the logistics so you can just focus on winning business at the show. We'll be able to help you to identify potential partners and also enhance your presence with networking opportunities, for example, VIP pavilion tours or networking receptions. And we have 2 stand options, as mentioned. One is just your own stand or a pod if if you wanted to start with something a bit smaller. And last slide, please. If you wanted to hear more about it, please get in touch with our team, whoever is your contact already. It could be me, myself, or my colleague Charmaine as well. Yeah, that is it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natalia. It's important to emphasize, if you are a UK company, you're welcome to join. But as this year, we're also not hosting only the UK pavilion, we also have the EIC pavilion. So even if you're not a UK company, you're welcome to join as well. We'll have a special area for you. Okay, so I'm going to invite now our next speaker for today. Kevin Pedrosa is an undergraduate in Defense Strategic Management Studies at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro and COPEAD Institute of Administration. He works as a supply chain analyst at the EIC and is one of the responsible for the supply, well, was the key person responsible for developing EIC supply map in Brazil. So Kevin, we're very happy that this month you became a full-time employee of the EIC, and we're also happy that you were completely focused in developing this launch. So over to you to explain to everyone what's involved on EIC supply map Brazil.
Thank you so much, Clarice. Thank you for the kind words. Well, hello everyone, good morning. It's a pleasure being here today talking about the EIC supply map expansion, something that we've been working for the past couple years or so, and also what we can find in the oil and gas sector supply chain. So next slide, please. Oh yeah. So what is supply map? Clarissa already said a little bit about, but basically it's one of our 3 databases that we have here in our house. So this database has the goal to map the energy supply chain from key markets worldwide. And in United Kingdom, we already have mapped 3,500 UK energy supply chain. And we also have worked closely with Scotland's Acorn project and BP to understand potential capabilities, given the synergies of some sectors with the proven capabilities that we have in our database. So with that, all this insight and all this information that we gather and so much opportunities in this, we thought to ourselves, why not to expand to new markets? And that's exactly what we did. Next slide, please. So we'll soon be having 6,000 unique suppliers worldwide in 4 new markets: Brazil, Malaysia, UAE, and Texas, USA. And with this, you can understand the strengths, weaknesses, gaps, and opportunities in those countries. Also being able to benchmark side by side, and also what they can learn from each other. As an example, next slide, please. We have, using all the supply map filters, we can find that only upstream there are 594 companies working in upstream. So, and of those, 320 work in marine subsea sector. And being the 5 big capabilities: ancillary equipment, valves, filters, compressors, etc., inspection services, maintenance, but not operation maintenance, that's a different thing, electrical instrumentation, sensor, electrical wire switches, general equipment manufacturer, so turnkey manufacturing, everything you need, and specialty steels and tubulars, so manufacturer of pipes and tubes. In this graph here in the right, we can also see the weaknesses in the supply chain in Brazil. So we lack sizable campus suppliers of heavy lifting and heat treatments in marine subsea. So taking this big top capability ancillary equipment, could you please, next slide, please. Using all this information, we can go even further. So ancillary equipment, we can take a valve. Okay, so let's think about a valve, butterfly valves. And with all the information that we have from these 5 markets, we can benchmark one another. So we see that first place is the UK and second place goes Brazil with 38 companies. And in the whole database, we can see that we have 146 companies that provide exactly butterfly valves. So it's interesting to see the difference in those things. So next slide, please. As a summary, supply map can take a lot of opportunities for import and export for companies looking at those markets. You can discover the strengths and weaknesses in each sector. You can compare suppliers and even your competitors if you feel like that. And also you can find specific equipment and services, even the most specific ones, as I just showed you from Butterfly Valves. And in here on the right, we can see one of our members, profile company, that has so many equipment and services. And without further ado, next slide, please. We'll be launching the expansion on the 13th April to all EIC members. And exactly, thank you so much for your attention. Any inquiries, you can reach me on the next slide email. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I think this shows the potential of connection between the markets of Brazil and the UK and international markets, because now with the supply chain mapped, we can see the capabilities, we can see the gaps, and we can also make connections. So if you are listening to us today and if you're searching for a partner, you can either search yourself, or we can tell us what is it, the capabilities that you need, what is it that if you are a contractor or an operator searching for a specific category or a product or service, we know or we have mapped who is offering those kind of products and services within all the energy categories, both in all those in all those regions that Kevin have mapped globally. So that is one of the other things that is included in the membership. But even if you're not a member, you can see the EIC members on the procurement guide online, and you can have a glimpse of how this works. Thank you very much, Kevin. Now let's jump into what's happening within the Brazilian oil and gas market, not only the supply chain. So I'm going to invite Pietro Ferreira, and while we set up the slides, Pietro holds a bachelor degree in international relations and has a specialization degree in oil and gas. He's also pursuing a master's in global energy policy from the University of London. Pietro works as a senior regional analyst at the Energy Industries Council regional office in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. His activities involve researching and analyzing project information on the energy markets across North, Central, and South America, including developments across up, mid, downstream power and the renewable sectors. Before joining the EIC in 2009, Pietro worked in the British Consulate General in Rio de Janeiro, where he was involved in trade promotion initiatives for the renewable sector. Pietro, thanks for joining us and bringing us this wealth of information. I'm going to pass over the microphone to you right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarice. Bom dia, good morning, everyone. Yeah, following Kevin's excellent presentation on EIC Supply Map, I'll deliver an overview of project activity in the oil and gas sector here in Brazil, getting data from EIC Data Stream, which is the EIC's CAPEX projects database, which tracks projects all across the globe. So let's start with first a general view of what we have in Brazil in terms of energy markets. So the chart to the left shows the number of projects that we track currently in Brazil, divided by sector. So renewable energy, onshore wind and solar, offshore wind as well, biomass, hydro, concentrate about 60% of the Brazilian projects we track in the database, followed by upstream. And here we track all E&P projects, both onshore and offshore, but limited to projects which have announced discovery. So offshore acreage in which no discoveries have been announced yet are not tracked in that share. This is followed by power. And this includes not only conventional power, such as gas and diesel-fired facilities, but also nuclear. The resumption of the Angra 3 nuclear power project is also being tracked. And then downstream transmission and distribution, midstream, and hydrogen complete this chart. To the right, the similar analysis, but picking CAPEX as our criteria, we can see that renewables concentrate about 71% of the Brazilian energy capex, and that's mainly because of the massive, the robust pipeline of offshore wind projects which have been submitted to IBAMA. So, and projects which are expected to start operations in the beginning of the next decade. So let's move specifically to oil and gas, starting with the upstream. Let me. Right, there we are. So here we have the key operators by capex. As my colleague Natalia mentioned in her slide, we have $134 billion being tracked in the upstream sector in Brazil, and we can see that Petrobras is the key player. But I would argue that this scenario, this reality, has somehow changed over the years. There has been a diversification, not only when it comes to players. For example, there are major IOCs pursuing robust projects in Brazil, but also a diversification of areas of projects. Now we have lots of redevelopment projects. We have major field development projects outside the pre-salt basin, such as the Sergipe-Alagoas area. So in this slide, we can see who are the key players pursuing upstream projects in Brazil. The next slide, the one in the middle, shows the number of FPSOs expected to start operations in Brazil, to be deployed in Brazil by 2028. This also includes units that will be repurposed, not only new build or converted units, but also units that are being modified. And we can see the strength of the offshore construction market in Brazil. Of course, that most of the significant part of the construction work related to FPSOs is undertaken in Asian shipyards, but Brazilian shipyards such as EBR, Brasfel, Jurong have also attracted some of this work in recent years. And to the right, the major subsea contract awards since 2020. The subsea markets are also a major opportunity for the Brazilian supply chain, and here you can see the key contractors over the last few years. Now let's have a look at the key projects that we are tracking in EAC data stream. I highlighting the projects in Sergipe-Alagoas, SEAP 1 and 2. Petrobras has recently launched a tender for these 2 units. These will be 2 21-year charter contracts for 2 120,000 barrels per day FPSOs, and bids are due in October this year. Also, when speaking of tenders, Petrobras launched in December tenders for the P84 and P85 FPSOs, which will be deployed at the Atapu and Sepia oil fields in the Santos Basin. Bids for these 2 units, which will be built under EPC contracts, are due in July. Another major redevelopment project in Brazil is talking about this diversification, not only major projects in the pre-salt, but also redevelopment projects in the Campos Basin. And one of them is the Albacora redevelopment project by Petrobras. The company plans to install a 120,000 barrel per day FPSO at Albacora to replace 2 existing units there. And bids for this production unit are expected in July. But the market is not only about Petrobras, so I'm also highlighting here a project by Equinor, the Pão de Açúcar gas field in the Campos Basin, block BMC 33. This will feature an FPSO. An FID, a final investment decision, is expected in May, and we understand that MODAC is lined up for the FPSO contract. Right. Speaking about midstream, what do we track under midstream? Transport pipelines, gas processing units, LNG terminals, and I would say that the diversification that I mentioned previously also applies to midstream. Petrobras is no longer the sole proponent of major projects in this area, as you can see in the chart to the left. In the next slide, we can see, right, what are the key projects that we're tracking under midstream? Going in a clockwise direction, starting in Sergipe, we have the Sergipe gas processing plant. This facility will process future production from the SEAP fields operated by Petrobras. Speaking of gas processing plants, we have Comperj, or now it's currently called Gaslub. It's a gas processing plant here in the state of Rio de Janeiro, which will receive gas from the Route 3 pipeline, Rota 3, which connects Búzios field to with Itaboraí. This project has been going on for quite some time. Recently, Toyo Setal was awarded a contract to complete this plant following the cancellation of a contract with the Querui Método consortium. Another project that I'm highlighting here in this slide is the Gazinf gas pipeline. This is one of two alternatives plans for the connection of the Açu terminal to the gas grid in the Rio de Janeiro state. The other alternative is the Gazog pipeline. Gazinf would connect Açu to the Tecabe terminal in Macaé, whereas Gazog would link the Açu terminal to the Gascav gas pipeline. Another major pipeline that has been proposed is the Route 4A project. Again, this is one of two alternatives proposed to connect the Bacalhau field operated by Equinor to the shore. Pipeline 4A goes to São Paulo, and 4B goes to Rio de Janeiro. This is a project by Compass Gás e Energia, which is also developing an LNG import terminal in Cubatão. And speaking of LNG, in Macaé, Tepo has a project for an LNG import terminal in Macaé, and in Maranhão, in northeastern Brazil, Eneva has plans to install a small-scale liquefaction solution to supply gas to a pulp mill by Suzano in Imperatriz. It's somewhat similar, well, very much similar, actually, to the Jaguatirica project implemented in northern Brazil. LNG is produced and then transported to the Suzano pulp mill via cryogenic trucks, and then it's regasified to be used by Suzano. Let's move to downstream. Great. What do we track under downstream? Refining, petrochemicals, but also biofuel projects, including renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuels. Petrobras is the leader, according to ESC data stream, with revamped projects, expansions at existing refineries. But we can also see some other players, such as Noxus Energy, which is now spearheading a very interesting idea, which is the development of modular refineries, small-scale refineries across the country for the production of bunker fuel. We can also see lots of other players focused on biofuels, such as Raízen, which has a very interesting pipeline of second-generation ethanol plants, FSB Energia, and some others that you can see on this slide. And now let's have a look at some of these projects. Great. Well, I mentioned Noxus. The company is developing this modular refinery in Pecém, at the Pecém terminal in Ceará. Construction is expected to begin later this year. The company also has a project in Sergipe, at a place called Barra dos Coqueiros. And it's one of the well, these two are two of the projects by Noxus Energy across Brazil. Moving to the southeast region, we have a revamp of the diesel hydrotreater at the Revap refinery in São José dos Campos, in the state of São Paulo, and also in São Paulo, a new hydrotreatment unit, a diesel HDT unit, at the Replan refinery in Paulínia. And looking at clean fuels, Raízen plans to develop a second generation ethanol plant in São Paulo. It is the Barra Bonita 2G project. And up in northern Brazil, in Amazonas, Brasil Biofuels is planning a facility in Manaus that will use palm oil as feedstock. Last year, we learned that the technology for this process will be supplied by Topsoe. Now, a quick look at clean energy. Renewable energy has drawn strong interest from IOCs in Brazil. Companies that are pursuing decarbonization strategies, developing projects such as onshore wind, solar, and some of these companies are also proposing offshore wind projects across the country. And here you can see the Equinor, Shell, and Total Energies, some of these major players with offshore wind projects in the country. And to the right, representation of the potential capital expenditure based on the current pipeline that we have. You'll notice that the bar for offshore wind's pretty big at the moment. That's because of all the projects that are currently filed with IBAMA. Of course, not all of these projects will be developed, but nevertheless, offshore wind represents a major opportunity for Brazil. And now a quick look at the clean energy projects being proposed by IOCs and other key developers. So to the right, I'm highlighting some offshore wind projects by Shell, Equinor, and Total Energies off the coast of Rio de Janeiro. It doesn't mean, of course, that Rio is the only state attracting these kind of developments. The northeastern coast of Brazil and the southern coast of Brazil are also target areas by offshore wind developers. And to the left, some of the green hydrogen projects produced through electrolysis that have been proposed in the country. We have an R&D project by Shell at Açu, Unigel in Bahia, which has already announced the second development phase of its green hydrogen plant using ThyssenKrupp electrolyzers, and CARE, which is also one of our speakers in a EAC event we're going to have in Thursday this week. CARE is developing a green hydrogen project in Pernambuco at the Suape terminal near Recife. And now to wrap up the final slide, right, good. This slide is very similar to the first one, but here we're looking at current opportunities, opportunities that are starting operations, projects starting operations in the next 5 years. To the left, the number of the projects which represent current opportunities, and to the right, the capex, the investment being directed to these near-term opportunities. The number of clean energy projects is substantial, it's very significant, as you can see, but to the right, we can see that about 40% of the current capex is associated with up, mid, and downstream sectors. So it means there are still lots of opportunities, plenty of opportunities for the oil and gas supply chain in Brazil, which will certainly be further explored at OTC Brazil later this year. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pietro. It's so good to see so much happening in Brazil, booming again with so many opportunities. So now to continue today's webinar, I'm going to invite our key speaker for today, Fernanda Delgado, invited to the stage. So Fernanda is an executive director at IBP, the Brazilian Oil and Gas Institute. She's also an FGV professor in the postgraduate program at the School of Command and General Staff of the Army. She has a PhD in energy planning, a master's in information technology, and 4 published books in petropolitics. Additionally, Fernanda has professional experience in working in relevant companies in Brazil and abroad. And of course, being a woman leader, she makes us all very proud to be in such a position. So Fernanda, we would like to invite you to the stage. Feel free to open your camera and your microphone. Let me see if we can hear you. Yes. I think it's just the microphone. Uh-oh. Let's try again. Bear with us. We're just having one technical difficulty. Yeah, the camera is fine. Now, if you can just unmute yourself. Let me try from our side.
Okay.
Yes,
There
it's
you go.
working now. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Clarice, for this invitation. It's an honor for IBP to join you here. My name is Fernanda. I don't have this very detailed presentation that Pietro did. It was amazing to see in detail how the opportunities that we will have in Brazil for the next years. I will speak in a broadly perspective about the upstream opportunities that we have here, and also about the energy transition and how we are going to see it in Brazil for the next year. So, as we know, Brazil is the world's 90th largest producer of oil and gas, and the sector is responsible for 15% of the Brazilian GDP. Brazil is the vast oil and gas reserves that can sustain its position as one of the global leaders producers in the numbers of years ahead that we had. With the costs and carbon emission lower than worldwide, Brazil is a viable source of crude oil for the international market for the years ahead. So this is a very important information. The oil that we produce here in Brazil has a very low content of CO2 emission, which can lead us, which can put Brazil in an advantage for the years ahead in emissions, in CO2 emission per barrel. Additionally, an explored resource base of 24 million barrels indicate that we still have the capacity to postpone the decline of the production until the beginning of 2040. So, as to say, Brazil has a very long oil market to explore and to fulfill the international market. After the slowing down of the 2020 due to the COVID pandemic, the momentum of the oil and gas sanction in Brazil has picked up in 2021. At least 11 projects were approved this year, which include pre-salt projects and brownfield redevelopments, and most of them were shown by Pietro on his presentation. So, exploration activity projects remain robust in the coming years. In 2023, more than 50 wells are planning in the Campos Santos, Sergipe, Alagoas, Potiguar, and Foz do Amazonas, as Pietro showed. Towards the end of the decade, Petrobras is set to concentrate on exploring the potential of the Equatorial Margin region, including Foz do Amazonas, Pará-Maranhão Margin region, including Ceará and Potiguar basins, replicating the remarkable achievements that we had, that Guyana had. The potential in the areas is estimated to exceed 7 billion barrels, and Petrobras has outlined plans to invest more than $3 billion in Equatorial Margin on their strategic plan for 2023-2027. These investments represent half of the total project of $6 billion exploration for this 4-year period. Well, being one of the world's most cost-effective and environmentally friendly producers gives Brazil a significant competitive edge. our deep water discoveries here in Brazil have an average break-even price of approximately $33 per barrel. Moreover, the emissions, as I said, of CO2 per barrel are something about 15 kilos per barrel, which is very below the global average. So the importance of hydrocarbons in the upcoming decades and the competitive advantages for for Brazil in terms of CO2 emissions and prices make possible that Brazil resources will be essential for the decarbonization world. There is a sentence that has been said all over, that is, the future without the decarbonized future is not a future without hydrocarbons. Talking about energy transition challenges and opportunities, the scenarios that we have for the future in Brazil, despite the maintenance of oil and gas, is still to enhance an energy mix, marketing by the diversity of the sources, and high participation of the renewables, as Pietro showed on the several projects that we have online and for the future. Differentiation emissions profile comparing on the rest of the world. One thing that I always like to highlight is that Brazil is in a position that several countries in the world would like to be. When we have 45% of our matrix already renewable and 85% of our electric matrix already renewable, we already made the energy transition. We occupy the place that many countries are investing $1 billion in order to be. So the problem is how to maintain the renewability of this matrix and accommodate the economic growth that we are expecting to have. So the country possesses the necessity and the necessary characteristics to become one of the main leaders of the low carbon economy, with the oil and gas sector being strategic for this position. The oil and gas sector has the R&D intelligence, has the financing issues, so we can be strategic for the developing of the science and the innovation that we need for the energy transition. The International Energy Agency already said that 50% of the technologies that we need for the energy transition, they are not commercial viable, they are not yet commercial viable, or they are not discovered yet. So what is interesting to note is the Brazilian energy matrix is already very renewable, and the projections are how to keep it renewable for the next years. The point is to have a plan. We need to have a plan to where we want to get, where and how we're gonna be there, being a nation of oil and gas, being a nation of renewables, being a nation of renewables as from oil and gas, it doesn't matter. The point is to have a plan, an energetic and integrated plan, and to go there with all our efforts towards this objective, either solar, either with offshore, onshore, or offshore wind, or hydrogen. So I guess this is what I have to contribute, and I'm open for questions. Once again, thank EIC and thank Clarice for the invitation. IBP is very honored to be here once again this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fernanda. We're delighted to have you again on this. That has become an annual partnership now. I think it's the third or fourth time already we're hosting this webinar. So now that we concluded passing this very rich content, showing our attendees the opportunities, where we stand, and so on, we're going to open for questions. So I'm going to invite our speakers back to open the cameras and microphones, and I'm going to invite the audience to participate with us, sending you your suggested questions, and I'll be happy to read them. I'm so sorry. Okay, so let's go here and see what's coming on the Q&A session. Okay, so Kevin, I have a first question coming to you. How is Kevin around as well? Thank you. Kevin, doing this exercise of mapping the energy supply chain in Brazil and the UK, how both markets compare? Of course, we're talking about the energy sectors here, but in terms of size of market and the amount of companies, and I know Texas is coming next as well. It's not a country, but we focused on the region. Can you shed a light there and how it compares in terms of opportunities?
Sure thing. Well, here in Brazil, we have more manufacturing plant, manufacturing facilities than the UK. UK is mostly those small things, valves, etc., and technology-wise development. And while in here, we tend more on the services and manufacturing side. The big manufacturers are just going to the Asia part, Malaysia. If we look at Malaysia, there are a lot of shipyards, and in Singapore as well. But the big difference is that in the UK, it's basically technology development and small equipments. Well, while they're importing more from Europe, such as Netherlands, Denmark, and so on. So this is the big difference, and the difference in companies as well. So here in Brazil, it's more concentrated in the south, our industry, because of industrialization historically, while in the UK, there are a lot of bubbles of development every single place, everywhere in the country. So this is the big difference in it. Hope it explains a little bit.
No, okay. I think that highlights. I think you could also. I think I've seen from the numbers as well. It's quite impressive the sizes as well. So that's a good point that you highlighted there. So thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, let me see what we have next here. Pietro, what do you think are the well, we've seen a lot of opportunities on the of course we have with on the recent years, or the changes in the landscape here with the recent players that entered the market. So we used to have a market in the past dominated by Petrobras, and now with first with the major IOCs that entered, and then more recently we had a very dramatic change with the many smaller operators that have entered both the offshore but also the onshore side, and actually this week it's happening, the onshore week event. So the question is, how do you see, and actually it's a question to Fernanda as well, how do you see this movement of new developers and operators doing business in Brazil, and what it entails for the supply chain? Pedro?
Right, I'll start. I think Fernanda, oh, she's here with us because you were not moving. I thought you had disconnected. Okay, well, yeah, I totally agree. There is a diversification in the market now, which is very good news for suppliers. You don't have all your eggs in just one basket. You have additional sources of revenue, additional opportunities. But all things considered, Petrobras still is the key player. I think the opportunities that we see now in redevelopment in Encompass Basin, the companies that have acquired assets from Petrobras, assets that were considered non-core assets by the company, and this sale provided these independent players an opportunity to expand their acreage in Brazil, to create new opportunities for the country. This is very good news. And also, you mentioned onshore. Some of these acquisitions that were carried out in recent years as part of this divestment program by Petrobras also created opportunities for companies like 3R, Trident, Origem, and I do believe that this is the way forward. The diversification of players benefits the supply chain, benefits Brazil and the local communities. So I think this is a very good opportunity for the country.
Thank you very much, Pietro. Fernanda, would you like to comment on that? Okay. So we have another one is we are an EPC operating in the oil and gas, petrochemical and fertilizers industry. Could you please suggest a way to enter the Brazilian market, Fernanda? And the same company also comments, also we're looking forward connecting with companies operating in hydrogen and CCUS. We would appreciate connecting with technology in this field. Of course, I think this is this question is, I think we can tweakle it. Is there still room in the Brazilian market for new players that are EPCs operating in this area? And secondly, what's the best way to enter the market? So Fernanda, I'll pass this one over to you.
Thank you. Of course, there is still a lot of room for new players. Actually, this is the main reason for spaces of discussion like this, in order to show the potential of Brazil investments and to attract investments and to have more players. This is the way of our institutions to exist in order to attract new companies to Brazil. I guess you can look for AIC or IBP, and we can be delighted to help you how to guide you here for your business, but there's still a lot of room for new players to come for either oil and gas business or renewables in any kind.
Now, talking about renewables, Fernanda, what to expect on OTC Brazil this year? I know there's a huge, of course, OTC Brazil originally had a huge focus in the offshore developments, but even the Houston edition now is bringing a lot of offshore wind. There's a lot of energy transition discussions. Is this expected as well for the agenda on the Brazil side? Can you share with us a little bit on what's going to come next towards the end of the year?
Sure. Thank you for this question, Clarice. We are still putting together all the agenda that we are going to have in the end of the year for the OTC Brazil. But of course, we are going to discuss everything related to energy transition, to climate change, how to avoid the 1.5 to the plus 1.5 degrees of the climate change things. And we are going to have deep discussions about offshore wind. We have an agreement, IBP have an agreement with Eólica, so we are bringing the discussions about offshore wind to the OTC in the end of the year. So you can expect, of course, everything related to offshore, but also everything related to energy transition and how to Brazil to embrace that and to give the next step as to have the decarbonization with the hydrocarbons, as I said.
Perfect. I think with that, I'm going to conclude today's webinar. And I'm also going to leave an invitation, Fernanda, to you to join us. We're going to host our biggest ESC biggest events to you and of course to all our audience. ESC biggest events called the Energy Export Conference. It's held in Aberdeen in June this year, and we would be delighted to have a Brazilian presence. We already have Acelen, a refinery from Brazil, confirmed, and we would be delighted as well to have IBP and other representatives from the Brazilian industry presence there. So here is our official invite live to everyone. No pressure, but I think this would be a point to touch base with the UK and European community, international community actually attending the Energy Export Conference. And later on, a second moment for everyone to come to Brazil and experience this market and visit this market through during OTC Brazil. Okay, so I have a final reminders here to finish today. So I would like to thank our presenters, Fernanda, Pietro, Kevin, Natalia. Really appreciate your time today. And that's a wrap for today. On behalf of the EIC team, I would like to thank everyone for attending today's event, and of course a kind of thank for our speakers for their engagement and great insights. Now we're going to move for the second half of the event, and I would like to invite all our delegates to our speed and networking session. So if you would like to join the Glimpse platform, you have the instructions there on the screen. It's very easy to access. You just click a continue on guest, put your first name, the one-liner is your job title and name of the company, and then you click next. Just keep putting your photo, don't worry. And then you click on go. And when you click there, you need to accept your next meeting. So every guest that prompts, you can accept, and you have up to, I think, 2 or 3 minutes to chat live. It's like almost like a Teams call, and the system will prompt you randomly with whoever is in the room, and will rotate people. So it's a very good way to get to know people. So don't be shy, everyone. Please join us, and it will be a pleasure to talk to you over there. Those are our contact details, and we're very happy to see you today. Well, at least to be interacting and for being able to provide you this information. And we hope to see you in our next initiatives. Fernanda, thank you again for collaborating with the EIC, and we're very happy to work again with IBP and other initiatives. Thank you all. That's the end of today. Oh, I did forget to mention the link to access Glimpse is either here on the chat or on your email, okay? I'm going to jump over there to the link. Thank you. Bye-bye.